Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Inland Empire Coaches Talk. Today, I'm with the head baseball coach from Orange Vista and the Coyotes, Mike Overton. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, tell the folks at home a little bit about yourself and how you came to Orange Vista.
I probably started baseball, of course, played my whole life, a little bit of college ball as well, and then kind of took a break. And a buddy of mine, Scott Montgomery, who's at Heritage High School right now, he called and asked me to be a part of opening up Heritage High. And so I did my first 2 years there at lower levels. Went out to Lakeside and Elsinore for 2 years as an assistant varsity. Then I came to the Val Verde district as a teacher, coached 2 years lower level at Rancho Verde, and I got the opportunity to kind of open up a program and build it from scratch. And so I went to Orange Vista. This is the 5th year. So about 5 years ago, we got to see the school go from 2 buildings to 3 buildings to 4 buildings to what it is today. So pretty nice. Went from playing at a rec field a couple years ago to having one of the nicer fields. So.
Absolutely. So talk about the growing of a program. Like, all of a sudden you're on a map and now you're having to compete against programs that have been out there for decades.
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest challenges we have. Every season going into it, you can kind of do some scouting, kind of go to max prep and look at the teams you're going to play, but you really have no idea. So we know that we were good compared to the teams we played last year, but who knows about this year? And so it seems like every single year it's been a growing experience. I believe we started D7 and, we were playing, Christian schools and Indian schools and a lot of schools like that, which made sense. We were freshmen and sophomores. We were all babies. And so we did that for a couple years and we knew we were good against them. But now what happens when we move up a league? So the past 2 years we did move up and we were pretty successful. And so now they bumped us up again. So, whole new challenge, and all we can do is stick to our philosophy, do what we want to do well, and hope it's enough.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, we have a little bit different when it comes to playoffs, where you can have a good year, but you have no idea who you're playing until you're actually seeded in a playoff because of competitive equity.
Absolutely.
Can you talk about coaching to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because, like I said, we known a little bit about our league, but again, you don't know what you're going to face once you get there. We went from Division 7, had a nice run, went to the semifinals, got knocked out by Fillmore, team we've never heard of, and then they bump us up 2 divisions, up to 5. So same thing, we go through our season, we don't know what to expect. Another good run, semifinals again. We got knocked off by, I think, 1 or 2 runs by the CIF champ. So 2 years in a row, 2 semifinals. They jumped us up 2 divisions in between, and just trying to get back to that same place we were last time we got a chance to go to CIF and take that next step.
Absolutely. So you've been around the Inland Empire, you've been coaching, obviously you played college baseball. Who are some of the pillars in the area that have affected and molded your style of coaching?
Well, like I said, you've had many of the greats from around here. Clint, of course, over there at Ramona. Steve's doing his thing at King Forever, and I've kind of got to appreciate them from a distance, kind of seeing the programs they put together. But again, like I said, I probably got back into it about 12 years ago at Heritage, and they were a brand new program, and so they become very successful. So we try to follow a lot of the stuff we were doing there. And so from that coaching staff, you still have Coach Montgomery that's there, and then you have Jason Burney that's over there at Paloma doing a lot of good things. And so some of the philosophies that we were doing 11, 12 years ago that worked there, I just brought over to Orange Vista.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what is your style of coaching for the folks at home that don't really know? Because obviously, California, you have small ball West Coast baseball versus the Bronx Bombers and East Coasters always trying to knock it out. Like, there's a lot of subtleties in chess games in baseball that not everyone is accustomed to or don't really know the differences.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you have to be able to adapt. I know when I was playing, high school some 20-something years ago, you could hit the ball a long way, and you can play the long ball.
The Z2K -5s?
Yeah. I think I still have a old bat from the 90s that I'll bring out from BP every once in a while, and I'm out hitting all the guys with the BB core, so that's a lot of fun. But no, you absolutely have to adapt. And so our philosophy is, win an at bat, win an inning. The teams that that can do that. They can play small ball. They can play smart, play intelligent, run bases well, stop the other team from running bases. Those are the teams that are going to win titles. Because there will be games where the bats are hot and you put up 10 or 12 runs, but you have to win the one-run games, the two-run games.
Absolutely. And I had John from John W. North in here a little bit earlier, and we were talking about just the difference. You can put out a 9-man lineup, same 9-man lineup. But depending on who's on the bump, because baseball is a team sport, but it's one-on-one confrontation all the time.
Absolutely.
How that can change the dynamic of a game drastically.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you have that guy, you always have a chance. And so we, like at Orange Vista, like I said, we weren't the biggest school. Like I said, we were a new school, and now our population is pretty nice. But, we started with only freshmen and sophomore and kind of worked our way up. But we've never had that guy throwing 90 miles an hour, Mm-hmm. So we have guys that can mix it up. And as a matter of fact, this year we probably have our deepest staff as far as guys that can throw it a little bit. But we're coming from a couple years ago where we're just playing with freshmen and sophomore, so we're hitting our spots, we're mixing it up, we're pitching backwards, starting with changeups and curveballs, and then mixing in the fastball. So one thing that it's luxury to have a guy that can do that, but not having a guy like that, it builds the rest of the team because we have to play good defense. We have to run bases.
Absolutely. You don't get to take it for granted that he can go and strike out the side like Matt Scherzer.
Absolutely.
So do you let your catchers call their own game, or because you're still a newer program, are you calling the game?
No, I would say our catchers probably call 80 to 90% of the game. Mm-hmm. Again, one of my guys that graduated last year, he was there for 4 years, and so he was pretty much my starter the whole time. Mm-hmm. So as a freshman, we probably called 80%, and then as he went up, it was less and less. Now, I'll always have veto power, so we have signs. 90% of the time, it's a dummy sign. I'm doing whatever. But you want them to control the game. You want them to become decision makers, and so the more that you can release to them, the more responsibility they're going to feel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, talk to me a little bit about the day that will live in infamy now, March 13th. So, obviously, we're starting to get in a groove with season, and then all of a sudden, whack.
Yeah. I remember it well. Of course, we had a couple of rainy days before that, and everybody was trying to cram to get games in, and like I said, we were actually on a roll. It's probably our hottest start of the season. I think we were 9-1. I think we ran into a good Citrus Hill team. I think that was our 1L, and so we were 9-1, 3-0 in league. We were playing well, and I just remember at the time people were saying, maybe 2 weeks we'll go to spring break and come back. So we were immediately trying to reschedule all our games, and then a couple of days later, it seemed like every day the news changed, and what can you do but adapt?
Yeah, absolutely. I know, talking to a few of the coaches, it's like, okay, we all know we have plan A, B, C, D, E. Well, now we're like on plan F, G, J.
There, yeah.
So how have you stayed connected to your players now? Again, spring into the summer, and now starting the new school year.
It's been very difficult. I just remember last year, you want to do the things you've done previous years. You want to do a banquet. You want to do a senior trip. You want to do this, and our hands are kind of tied. And I know, talking to some of the other coaches, there's not much you can do. A lot of Zoom meetings, texting the kids, kind of using Remind, just trying to encourage them to keep themselves active. I mean, what's really going to show after this is the guys that can work on their own. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the guys that are going to be in line for scholarships or even playing at JC are guys that can get themselves up, hit the gym, find somebody to play catch, and get their work in. So it's going to show. It's going to show once we get on the field who's been, handling their business and who's been kind of, taking it easy.
Absolutely. I was joking with one coach that I've sold more batting cages in the last 3 months than I had in my entire career.
Absolutely.
But they're all going to homes.
Yeah.
And we did a special on batting cages, and all of a sudden I put it on social media and I had 20 clicks in my inbox. I'm like, all right, I never got that luxury. I had the cheap Franklin tee, and then you just put a tennis ball out there and hit that off of a concrete wall, and
Absolutely.
That's all they could do.
Absolutely, it's a seller's market right now. Like you said, you try to buy some dumbbells or some weights, and everything's triple the price that it was last year.
Well, that's the funny thing is my friends will ask me right now, hey Mike, can you get me? I'm like, yeah, I still can for within reason, mind you, but we haven't raised our prices at all because we're a wholesaler.
Yeah.
And they're like, wait, you mean I can get this for cheaper than what I normally? I'm like, yeah, because I don't care. Like I'm sitting on $148 million worth of inventory in Dallas. Like, what do I care?
Yeah.
But it's true. The market is supply and demand, and some of the stuff that have skyrocketed has been, in some ways, asinine and astronomical. But
I over the summer when everything was all quarantined out and my kids are begging me for a pool, so I think we paid like $100 for an inflatable pool that would have cost $40, you know. But it was like, hey, supply and demand, and we had to go to 4 or 5 stores to look for it, and then we had to buy it off a line off of somebody.
Yep.
So supply and demand.
Absolutely. I mean, I created because I have my gym in my garage.
Perfect.
But the hotter it got, I went to Home Depot just trying to buy like those misting fans that you could put an ice bucket, and those things are $200 for a misting fan. I'm like, wait a second. Yeah. So I went on YouTube and figured out a way to make one myself.
Build your own. Absolutely.
So talk about the culture and the community, because obviously with a newer school you don't really have that culture, but you also have the excitement that it is a new school. So how have you guys been able to cultivate those relationships with the community?
Absolutely. I mean, going back to 5 years ago now, it's a brand new school. I believe there was plans for it in the district maybe 10, 12 years ago, and the money ran out or something, and so they kind of put it on hold. So when they did decide to go ahead and build, everything's brand new, everything's exciting. And so the new factor was awesome. New colors, new uniforms, we looked sharp, but at the same time, we really had no identity. We really had no culture. We went into a program with no senior leaderships. So we had sophomore leaders, and we had to try to teach them to become leaders, So really, before, of course, last year graduation was, virtual. The year before that was the first graduating class. So we're just now getting into a rhythm where we can have alumni come and talk to the kids. We're just now getting to the point where we can have solid seniors that had seniors to look up to. So it's definitely been a challenge building the culture, but at the same time, it allowed me and my coaches to kind of implement what we wanted. And so, like I said, that's what we've done.
Now you got the fresh start that I think some coaches beg for, but don't always know what they're getting themselves into.
A lot of growing pains. Like I said, it's exciting. You get to pick out the uniforms, get to meet with people like you and make some of those decisions. But at the same time, you have to take a step back and actually decide what you want your program to be, the players that you want. What are we going to allow? What aren't we going to allow? Are our catchers going to call the games? Are we going to look to build the toughest schedule we can to get better? And so those are, stuff that we had to learn along the way.
Absolutely. So now looking forward to 2021, which is weird to say, but we have 2 seasons, not 3. We're going to be trying to share fields, stack schedules, stack officials. What are you doing to try to plan for that now, if at all? And what challenges do you see coming your way?
Yeah, I think most of the coaches, at least in our area, we kind of stay in contact as far as scheduling games. That's going to be the big thing. Being in a brand new league, and again, we've had a couple successful seasons. We got bumped up into a higher league, but now we're playing 3 teams that we've never played before. So now we have to decide, how do I want to schedule my preseason? Which tournaments do we want to go to? Who do we want to play in exhibition? So right now, all we've been doing is kind of course, making our schedules, coming up with our COVID plan. Of course, now practices is going to look different, smaller numbers, bigger spaces between the guys and all that. So all we really could do is plan. And again, I'm fortunate that we're going to have 11 returners out of the 16 that we have. So we're very strong, very senior heavy. And I just stay in communication with the guys and tell them, as long as they're getting their work in, we'll be fine. We'll be prepared. As a coaching staff, we can still get together and see what our weaknesses were last year, what we needed to address. And so we've done our planning. We're just itching to get back out there. And like I said, as long as the kids are doing their part, we'll be ready to go.
Absolutely. I know, like, talking to football coaches, basketball, baseball, the cadence is different, because with baseball you have to build up your arm strength,
yes,
and get ready for it, versus football, the physicality of it and having to be in the weight room and bringing that camaraderie together in order to get your body physically ready to just punish it. Versus basketball is all about, almost like golf, touch. In order, if you're not shooting, you're not.
Yeah, all feel.
So it's interesting to see the differences on how you guys get to prepare versus how football is going to try to prepare in November going into the holiday. And
I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine as a football coach, because they're going from where they can't even have contact with them to try to be ready to go in a couple months. And so that's a challenge. We definitely got the better end of the deal as far as baseball. Hopefully, I think for our school, I think we're going to kind of come to the table, I think at the end of November to see what's the next step, but we're just hoping that by January 1, we're back at school, we can do our full preseason and get going.
Yeah, kind of have that life as normal, because high school baseball 10 years ago didn't start until March anyway, so
Absolutely.
It's not that big of a change for most baseball coaches.
Yeah.
It's going to be more in the latter parts of May going into June, starting to fight that heat.
Yeah.
That's going to be a little bit more, because not many people have lights, so you're going to have those hot days.
Oh, absolutely. Well, not only that, I mean, with the new CIF rule that's allowing for club ball and travel ball, I know a lot of our guys, the day that you get eliminated from CIF, the next weekend, they're playing in Arizona, playing in Vegas and all that. And so that's a conversation that we've briefly had that we'll get into a little bit more. As far as what is it going to look like in June. Like I said, we're making plans. Like I said, the last 2 years that we got to play, we got to the semifinals, 3 days away from CIF championship. So our plans, we have every intention to get to the CIF finals this year. So we're making plans to be playing throughout June. And so just getting the guys to buy in. Like I said, we've been building up to this team for a couple years. Like I said, I believe I have 9 seniors out of the 11 I know, and then plus we'll bring another 4 or 5 up from JV last year. But very mature group, poised to do damage. It's just going to be all about the mental game. Who's been putting in the work? Who's committed to Orange Vista as a program?
Absolutely. So baseball started to kind of finally embrace the digital age. Before we were extremely analog, and it was like, no, I will not change. But now with Rapsodo, pitch tracks, there's a plethora of different options out there. Is there any digital medias that you embrace as a coach and as a staff?
I mean, like I said, it's always good because, in high school, there's no way to kind of scout other teams or see what they're doing. We're teaching class, going to our games, and especially when you're in a new league, you don't know anything about it. So, I mean, as a coaching staff, of course, we look at Max Prep to kind of see who's done what and all that, how many seniors we're playing. You can't get a lot of information, but it gives you a baseline, common opponents you have. So we've used that. Of course, Game Changer now, everybody's on Game Changer, and so you can get some stuff like that. But I mean, as far as the kids, of course, the radar gun and stuff like that. But we're still kind of old school, still counting pitches by hand and sequences and stuff like that. But I'm definitely a big fan of the technology. I actually use Game Changer for my own team. Because, like I said, a lot of times in the heat of the moment, I'm like, man, these 3 guys, batters 2, 3, or 4, they're dominant. They're doing really good. And then you look 5 games into the season, and your 4th batter is batting $150. But in practice, he's a stud. And then some guy at the bottom of the lineup is batting $360. So I've done that where I've gone to Game Changers and I've adjusted, and it's really paid off. Because sometimes we see what we see in practice, or we see because we know what this kid can do, or how good of a player he is in our hearts, and we lose track of what's happening in the game. And so I use it to kind of check myself. And so a lot of times I'll make changes, and it's worked for us.
I remember in college, my skipper he's like, I am not romantic about your slot. Your slot in the lineup is not sacred. There is nothing on it except for a number.
Yeah.
You might be batting number 2 in the lineup one day, and you might be batting number 8 the next.
Yeah.
It all depends, because if I have a guy who's a sidewinder and you suck at hitting a sidewinder who can throw a cutter, sorry.
Yeah.
I ain't batting you number 2.
Yeah.
Vice versa, you suck against lefties, you're going lower down the lineup.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to, the high school season is so short. It's not like the MLB where you can slump for 10 or 15 games and come back. I mean, you have to be on. It's very, it's very critical that you're playing your best at all times. And so, we tell the guys, I tell them right now, this is who I think my lineup is, but the guys behind you, it's their job to take your spot. You know, I'm a big Pete Carroll fan, USC, Seattle Seahawks, and I remember when he was in his heyday at USC, he would bring all the freshmen in, and he said they're your starters. So he would put the freshmen as the first team and tell the old guys, now go get your spot back. And so we've done that a couple times where it's like, okay, the young guys, and I'll tell them, I expect you guys to fight and hold on to this position, and then I'll go talk to the guys, now go get your spot back. Let's see how many days it gets. And of course, usually the older guys will come, but we want that mentality where our older guys are always fighting to keep their spot, and the younger guys realize that if you play and you produce, you can get it.
Absolutely.
So I love to have our guys compete.
It's always staying hungry.
Absolutely.
So now we're 6 feet apart and trying to figure out COVID. If you could impart one message, and it's always the question that I ask at the end, if you could impart one message of hope to your parents, to your players, to your boosters, your community, what would be that one message?
Well, like you say, hope is a great word. But like I said, this is baseball, sports, life is about adversity. Okay, we're all going through it at the same time. So it's all about how you handle it. Like I said, I've heard it on your show before, and it's one of my philosophies too. You control what you can control. Again, you can control what you're doing during the situation. Do we want to play? Yes, we all want to be out there. We can't do it right now. So what can you do? So I tell my kids, I tell my parents, control what you can, do what you could do, and then be ready. You know, we always talk to our kids, our students, as teachers about handling adversity, how you deal with it, because that's all you can control is yourself. You can't control the circumstances, only how you react to it. And so I tell the kids, as long as you do that, you're going to be the best you can be, and you'll be successful.
Absolutely. Mike, thank you for being on the program.
Thank you.
If anybody would like to be on the program, please reach out. Past that, be safe. God bless.